Jonah Hale lived in a small workshop on the edge of the colony town of New Cascadia. The town was not large, but it was important because it was one of the few settlements on this planet where humans were trying to build a new home. The land around the town was wide and open, filled with tall grass and silver-colored hills. The sky always seemed brighter than on Earth, almost too bright, like the world was trying to start newly. Jonah had once been a man with a family. Years ago, he had a wife named Mara and a daughter named Leah. They were gentle, loving, and full of laughter. Then an illness spread through the colony, moving quicker than the doctors could understand. Many people became sick and some did not recover. Among them were Mara and Leah. Jonah's life changed that year. He had felt like the world had turned silent. He worked, he repaired machines, he made sure the colony had power and functioning equipment. But he spoke little. Everyone respected him, but they also gave him space. He did not ask for more. One morning, Jonah was working near the colony marketplace, repairing a cargo drone that had been stalled. The drone had bent wiring and a damaged core. Jonah sat on a low crate, his hands steady, focused only on the repair. He liked his work because machines did not judge, machines did not bring sadness. Machines followed rules, and if something broke, it could be fixed. As he worked, he heard voices nearby. The marketplace was usually calm, but this was not the sound of normal trade or conversation. It was tense. He looked up softly. A man named Reddick Moore stood near a transport station. He was a farmer who lived outside town. He was known for growing grain and raising a few animals. His clothes were worn and his face looked tired. Standing beside him was his daughter, a young woman named Leora Moore. She was holding a small backpack close to her chest. She looked like someone who had learned to stay quiet and not draw attention. Her hair was tied back simply, and her eyes were soft but filled with something that was trying not to spill out. Perhaps fear. Perhaps sadness. Across from them stood a representative of the Arclight Trade Guild. The guild was a large organization that provided supplies, technology, and transport between planets. They controlled many things, and people often depended on them. The representative spoke in a polished tone, one that sounded polite but firm. If the debt is not paid, the representative said, then the agreement must proceed. Leora will travel to our work facility on the Helix station. She will be provided food and shelter. The contract will remain until the debt is fulfilled. Reddick rubbed his forehead. I have no other choice. The farm is failing. I tried to keep up with fees, but the weather ruined half the harvest. I can't pay. This is the only way. Leora did not speak. She only looked at the ground. Jonah felt something shift in his chest. He did not usually involve himself in the affairs of others. He had spent years living quietly. Yet in that moment, Leora reminded him of his daughter. Not in appearance, but in the quietness, the unspoken words, the feeling of being trapped in something she did not choose. Jonah stood up slowly and walked toward them. Excuse me, he said. The guild representative looked at him. This matter is private. Jonah shook his head. The marketplace is public. I heard enough to know what is happening. Reddick looked embarrassed, almost ashamed. Jonah, I don't want to do this. I don't, but I have no choice. The guild will take the farm. Everything. This keeps us from losing the home. Leora whispered. It's all right. I can handle it. Her voice was steady, but only because she had trained herself to be steady. Jonah looked at her. He did not smile, but his expression softened. No one should lose their freedom to pay a debt, Jonah said quietly. There is another way. The guild representative raised a brow. And what would that be? Jonah took a slow breath. His voice remained steady and controlled. I can take Leora on as an apprentice at my workshop. Colony law allows voluntary apprenticeship to pay off debt through wages. I will pay her earnings directly to the guild to settle the amount over time. She will stay in the colony. She will remain free, the representative frowned. That would take years. Yes, Jonah replied. But her freedom is worth the time. Reddick looked torn. He wanted his daughter to be safe, yet he was scared of failing his farm. He looked at Leora. She looked at Jonah. The silence between them felt heavy, but it also felt like something important was happening in it. Leora spoke first. If I work and if I learn, I would like that. Her voice was small but honest. Reddick closed his eyes. Then he nodded. All right. The guild representative could not argue. Colony law was clear. As long as the apprenticeship document was signed voluntarily, they could not object. The representative sighed and began adjusting the contract. Jonah gave Reddick and Leora time. He stood still, as calm as the silent hills. When everything was signed, the guild representative left. Reddick placed a hand on Leora's shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice shook. She hugged him, and he held her briefly before walking back toward his transport vehicle. Leora watched him go, and then her eyes turned again to Jonah. "Thank you," she said softly. Jonah nodded once. "Come, we'll start with the workshop. It's simple work at first. I'll show you everything." They walked together through town. People glanced, curious, but no one asked questions. Jonah was known for his quiet decency. If he had taken someone as an apprentice, that meant he believed they deserved a chance. The workshop was small, warm, and full of tools, spare parts, gears, and wires. It smelled like metal and cleaning oil. Leora looked around, silently taking it in. For the first time in a long time, she felt something that wasn't fear. She felt possibility. Jonah showed her where tools were kept, how to organize parts, how to identify damaged wiring. He did not speak much, but when he did, his instructions were clear and patient. Leora paid close attention. She wanted to do well, not because she feared punishment, but because Jonah had given her something she did not expect: trust. Over days and weeks, they worked side by side. Jonah repaired engines. Leora learned to help with smaller tasks than larger ones. Every day she improved. She listened, she asked careful questions, and she grew more confident. Town members began noticing her too. They greeted her kindly. She greeted them back. Slowly, her world changed. Jonah did not ask about her past. He knew that people spoke when they were ready, and sometimes silence was not loneliness. Sometimes silence was healing. One evening, while they closed the workshop, Leora looked out at the bright sky. "I used to think life was only something that happened to me," she said. "Now it feels like something I can shape. Even if only a little." Jonah nodded. "You are shaping it, each day, step by step." She smiled for the first time, not a forced smile, but a real one. Jonah did not smile back, but his eyes grew warm. For the first time in years, he felt something return inside him too. Not laughter, not joy, but hope. A quiet, steady hope. And hope once awakened is powerful. As weeks turned into months, Leora continued her work at Jonah's workshop. The workshop soon became a place filled with quiet learning and patient guidance. The sound of tools clicking, engines humming, and gentle conversation became a daily rhythm. Leora no longer held her arms tightly around herself. She stood straighter now. Her voice, once soft like a whisper, had grown steady. Every morning she arrived early. She swept the workshop floor, organized the tools in their proper places, and checked the status of pending repair jobs. Jonah would come in shortly after, carrying a warm drink for both of them. He never said much, but the small, thoughtful actions said more than words. The townspeople began to notice Leora's growth. Farmers brought broken tractors to her. The supply station asked for help maintaining transport belts. Families asked her to repair home lights and heating coils. She worked with care and honesty, telling everyone exactly what needed fixing and never taking more time or credit than necessary. One day, the town mayor, a kind woman named Alara Voss, passed by the workshop. She paused at the doorway and watched Leora reassemble a drone engine. Leora's hands moved carefully, following the flow of wires and screws Jonah had taught her. When she finished, she wiped her hands with a cloth and saw Alara standing there. "You're becoming very skilled," Alara said warmly. Leora gave a small but confident smile. "I had a good teacher." Alara glanced at Jonah, who was working quietly on another machine nearby. "Yes," she said. "You certainly did." Life seemed peaceful again, but peace did not go unnoticed. The Arclight Trade Guild, the powerful organization that once planned to take Leora off-world, was not pleased with the change. They had expected her labor to support their workforce needs. They had counted on her absence helping them control more of the colony's trade. When she remained in the colony and continued to work freely, the guild saw it as a challenge to their authority. Guild reports began to circulate, speaking of compliance issues and contract limitations. At first, it was just paperwork and requests for financial updates. Jonah responded carefully and correctly every time. He was honest, organized, and always on time. The guild found no mistakes to use against him. Then came rumors, whispers, drifted through the marketplace. Jonah is trying to break guild law. He refuses to pay what he owes. He's teaching someone who shouldn't be trusted. Leora heard these whispers while collecting supplies. The words stung, but she remembered what Jonah once told her. When someone is doing something good, there will always be those who try to stop it. The truth is steady. Let it stand. So she stood steady, but others heard the rumors too, and some began to worry. The guild had influence. If the guild decided to pressure the colony, resources could become scarce. Supplies could stop arriving. Travel permits could be denied. Fear began to grow. One evening, Mayor Alara visited the workshop. She sat down with Jonah and Leora as the sun set. The workshop glowed amber with the last light of day. The guild is preparing something, Alara said. I don't know what yet, but they are trying to make the colony dependent on them. If they gain control, they could take away many freedoms. Jonah listened quietly. Leora sat still, her hands folded. We can't face them with anger, Jonah said. Anger only makes people afraid. We need calm. We need unity. We need truth, Alara nodded. I agree, but we also need voices. We need someone willing to speak. Jonah looked at Leora gently. His expression said what his voice did not need to say. He believed in her. Leora's heart beat faster. The idea of speaking to the colony was frightening. She had spent most of her life speaking only when necessary, but she remembered the day Jonah stepped forward for her. He did not raise his voice. He simply stood. If she could do the same for others, she wanted to try. I will speak, she said softly but clearly, not against anyone, but for what is right. The day of the meeting arrived. A gathering was called in the colony center. Most of the town came, curious and uncertain. The guild representative was there as well, wearing a calm expression that did not quite hide frustration. Jonah stood at the side, not speaking, only watching. Leora stepped forward. Her hands trembled at first, but when she began to speak, her voice steadied. I was scared, she said. I thought my life was decided for me. I thought I had no choices. I believed my value came only from what others wanted from me. The crowd listened. The air felt still, but I learned something here. I learned that every person has worth, not because of what they can do for others, but because they exist, because they think, because they hope, because they care. Faces in the crowd softened. No person should be forced into something they did not choose. Work should be given freely. Learning should be offered. Support should be shared. If we give that to one another, we do not need fear. We do not need pressure. We do not need to lose our freedom. People nodded. Some had tears in their eyes. The guild representative spoke next, trying to regain control with calm, practiced words. The guild only seeks order and progress. Without structure, colonies fail. You may feel emotional now, but emotions do not build civilizations. Jonah stepped forward then. He did not raise his voice. Human spirit does, he said. Progress comes from compassion. Structure means nothing if it forgets the people it serves. The room became quiet again. The silence felt different this time. Not heavy, not fearful, strong. The guild representative realized something in that moment. These were not individuals to be pushed one by one. They were a community, united by respect, trust, and shared humanity. There was no point in pressing further. The guild withdrew, not defeated by force, not outmaneuvered by clever tricks, but discouraged by the strength of human unity. Afterward, life in the colony did not return to how it was before. It became better. Farmers helped repair equipment for one another. Families shared resources during difficult harvest seasons. The town council began policies that protected apprentices and workers. New Cascadia grew not because of the guild, but because the people chose to stand together. Leora continued her apprenticeship. She learned to repair larger engines, complex aerial drones, and supply transport systems. Jonah taught her everything he knew, and she absorbed it with quiet determination. One evening, when the sky was a deep shade of gold, Jonah and Leora closed the workshop as usual. The air was calm and the wind was gentle across the grass. Leora looked thoughtful. Do you ever think about the future? She asked. Jonah considered the question. I think about tomorrow, he replied. One day at a time is enough for me. Leora smiled softly. I think about tomorrow too, but now, I'm not afraid of it. Jonah looked at her, his eyes warm with quiet pride. You should not be, he said. You built your tomorrow yourself. They walked home under the open, shining sky of New Cascadia. Two people once shaped by silence and loss, now standing in a future shaped by courage, kindness, and the simple decision to help one another. Humanity had shown its strength not through battle, not through power, but through compassion, and that is a strength that shines brighter than any star. HFY. Humanity moves forward. Always.